Hello, everyone who has joined the webinar. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to allow some more people to join. You may have to refresh your screen to be able to see my presentation. We'll begin shortly. If you're just joining us, I'm waiting a few minutes for several more people to join. We'll begin promptly in just a couple of moments. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind making sure you are able to access the Q&A button, you can open the chat by toggling your mouse in the upper right-hand corner. You should see an array of about 9 squares. If you click there, you should see the option for Q&A. If someone wouldn't mind posting a question just so I can make sure it's working, that would be wonderful. Great. I see test questions coming in, so that's a good sign. Thank you. I assume that means you can all hear me, so that's also a good sign. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to unshare my screen so I can say hello and introduce myself. Hopefully people who join late can watch this from the beginning since it is recording. So hello, my name's Alana Aaron. I am so glad you could all join this webinar today. Thanks for taking the time. I know it's a particularly busy time of year. I am the director of elementary school computer science academics for the CS for All team. I was formerly an elementary school teacher in New York City public schools for the past 11 years. And so we are thrilled that so many of you are interested in this pilot. And I'm personally excited to see so many people interested. Those of you who know me know how passionate I am about getting computer science into New York City schools. So welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and begin the presentation. All right, so Computer Science for All, you're at the application webinar for the first cohort of the elementary school computer science pilot. In this webinar, we'll go over what is the elementary school computer science pilot and how does it fit into CS for All. We will discuss curriculum and resources, program requirements. I will give you some application tips, and hopefully there'll be time for some Q&A at the end of the webinar. So why computer science education? Computer science is not just about technology, it's about logic, problem solving, creativity, skills that our students need in general. Early exposure to computer science is critical to addressing equity in tech education and in the tech industry. Computers and software are changing everything, but the majority of schools don't teach computer science. So you folks who are on this webinar are already a step ahead of the game and are trailblazers. You can see from these pie charts, 9 in 10 parents want their child to study computer science, but only 1 in 4 schools currently teach computer programming. So we are trying to change that. There's also an economic imperative. The Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that there will be more than 1 million open computing jobs in the US by 2024. 71% of all new jobs in STEM are in computing, but only 8% of STEM graduates are in computer science. So the STEM problem is actually in computer science. So we are trying to increase the number of students who graduate with computer science exposure. And computer science is actually relevant to all careers. 67% of software jobs are outside the tech industry, so we're not just trying to pump out a bunch of computer programmers. This is a skill that affects every field. So the goals of the elementary school pilot, I'm sure many of you know that in September of 2015, the mayor announced the Computer Science for All initiative that will provide computer science education to every public school student over the next 10 years. The goals of the elementary school computer science pilot are to increase the number of elementary school students, particularly from traditionally underrepresented groups who learn computer science, and to develop students' computational thinking and problem-solving skills in real-world contexts. So curriculum and resources that will be provided through the pilot if your school is accepted. There will be ongoing instructional support for the pilot year, professional development for all teachers, per session will be provided for all professional development that takes place outside of school hours. So the commitment by teachers is a mandatory 3-day summer institute, the first 3 days in August, that will be held at Microsoft. And then between October and May, there will be 4 bi-monthly Saturday sessions that will be mandatory. So every other month, teachers will be committing to 1 Saturday that is mandatory. The other Saturdays, the other 4 months, will be optional sessions where we'll delve a little deeper into some of the curriculum that's not necessarily the core curriculum. So the curriculum will include a mix of teacher-directed lessons, open-ended creative computing activities, topics such as computer programming, robotics, physical computing, and maker education, and the curriculum will align with the CSTA standards. They're currently in draft form, the new CSTA standards, but we're working alongside with the writers of the standards to make sure our program aligns. We will be providing the materials a school would need to implement the program. So we will provide a laptop cart with 30 MacBook Pros to those schools who are selected to participate in the pilot. In addition to that, we will provide things such as programmable robots, anything that is expected to be implemented in the school, and of course, some swag. It is important to note, however, that we can only provide these things to district schools. Charter schools can only receive non-financial resources if selected for the pilot. The program requirements. So in order to be considered for the pilot, you will need to provide computer science instruction to students in both grade bands, so the K-2 grade band and the 3-5 grade band. This is important because these 2 grade bands are 2 of the 4 grade bands that fall under the initiative. So in middle school and high school, those are their own grade bands, but the initiative requires that students receive learningful computer science, meaningful computer science learning experiences in both the K-2 and the 3-5 grade band. We will expect you to practice approaches that increase inclusiveness in computer science and help dispel gender and ethnic stereotypes. And of course, we will be going over those approaches with you and helping you implement them. And thirdly, you will need to plan to ensure school-wide adoption of computer science education following the pilot year. We also require that you provide at least 3 licensed teachers to represent both grade bands to attend professional development. So this is where there may be a lot of questions. The minimum requirement is 3 teachers. So ideally, your team would consist of at least 1 teacher from the K-2 grade band, 1 teacher from the 3-5 grade band, and possibly a technology teacher if you have one at your school. That is not mandatory, however, because we realize not all schools have computer teachers. So the 3rd teacher could be one of your choice. You may provide up to 7 teachers. We say 7 because we are looking for several schools to commit to 1 lead teacher from each of the 6 grades, so K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus a technology teacher. So not necessarily multiple teachers on the same grade, but 1 lead teacher per grade, plus the technology teacher. So that's what we mean when we say a team of 7. And then it is important that an administrator will serve as the point of contact for the pilot and will provide direct oversight and monitoring of the program to ensure implementation. So some tips, since you folks took the time to join this webinar. The application aims to collect information about your school so we know how to effectively support you, your teachers, and your students. And to encourage you to begin thinking about and planning how your school will implement the pilot curriculum for the 2016-17 school year if your school is selected. So a lot of the application is really just for us to gather information. We're not looking for who has the most technology or anything like that. We just want to collect information so we know how we can best support you. We're looking for thoughtful answers to the application questions. So the more thoughtful you are in responding to these questions and the more thorough you are, the better we'll be able to tell if your school is a good fit for the pilot. We're looking for a strong teacher team. So again, I said this before, but it will strengthen your application if you're able to provide a lead teacher for each grade, K-5, plus a tech teacher where available. We understand this is a large ask, which is why it's not required, but it will strengthen your application. So again, at a minimum, one teacher from each grade band, K-2, 3-5, plus a third teacher, which may or may not be a technology teacher. And again, a dedicated administrator who will ensure implementation is a very important, sorry about that, important part of the application. So you've probably all seen this application timeline, but I wanted to highlight some important dates. The application is due on Friday, April 22nd at 5 p.m., right before you all go on spring break. You may submit an application before then and edit it up until that point. You may only submit one application per school, but you can go back and edit your application at any time until 5 p.m. on April 22nd. And then final decisions will be sent to all by Monday, May 25th. And in between those two dates, so during the 3 weeks when you come back from spring break, we may contact certain schools for either site visits or interviews. So be prepared for that. If we do contact you, those will be mandatory. And then again, the professional development cycle will begin on Monday, August 1st. That will be the only commitment during the summer, is those 3 days. We'll launch the program in September, and the next professional development will be in October, start in October. So I am going to, if you have any further questions after this webinar, or if you're watching this webinar as a recording, you can contact us at escsp@strongschools.nyc at any time with any questions. We're on Twitter at escsp if you tweet. And I am going to go back to the chat box to see if I see any questions. That I can answer now. I see one great question. It says, is the administrator invited and or required to attend any of the PDs? So I'll answer that first. The administrator is absolutely invited, but not required. So we would love if administrators would like to attend. That's fabulous. We won't require it though. So hopefully that answers that. If we have more than 3 required for various grade bands, could other staff be from pre-K or other out of the classroom positions? I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. I know each school has a different situation, which is why we didn't really say exactly what the teacher team has to be. So between 3 to 7 teachers. If you submit an application and we have any questions about those other staff members, we may contact you. But I don't see why you couldn't have pre-K teachers or out-of-classroom teachers, as long as they will be working with students during the school day in the classroom to implement computer science. That's a good question. Are you hoping for, or let me, 1 second, here's another good one. Are you hoping for or expecting any District 75 schools to be a part of this? Will there be accommodations for the needs of our students? Absolutely. We are open to applications from District 75 schools. My colleague, Lionel Bergeron, who is working on the pilot with me, was a former District 75 technology coach. So hopefully that will help in making sure the needs of District 75 students are met. But again, equity is a big piece of the CS for All initiative. So we are looking for all kinds of schools with all kinds of students. Are the dates for the bi-monthly Saturdays set? How much of a computer science background do you need to have to participate? Great questions. The dates are not confirmed yet. We will hopefully have them confirmed by the time, either by the, I don't want to say for sure, so don't quote me on this, but we can work with you to figure out how we can get those dates to you as soon as possible, because I know teachers need to plan in advance. Ideally, we'll have them for you by the time we notify you that your school has been selected, so you can plan accordingly. That will be my personal goal. So I will work on that. And no computer science background is needed to participate. The goal of this program is to get computer science into as many New York City students as possible. We realize that a lot of elementary school teachers, or in fact almost all elementary school teachers, have not had experience with computer science, and so we will tailor our professional development to people with no experience, as well as to people who have attended computer science workshops or have implemented some computer science already. So, good question. How long, here's another good question. How long are the Saturday sessions? They will be 9 to 4 with an hour for lunch. So you will be paid per session for 6 hours for each of those Saturday sessions. And we will do our best to make them as centrally located as possible. How often would we be expected to teach computer science as part of this program? Once a week, every day? Again, great question. We will work with individual schools who are selected for the pilot to work on how implementation will look in your school. We do encourage you to start thinking about that now, sort of how it fits into scheduling and things like that, but we will share ideas for where it will fit into the school day, because we do understand that you have a lot on your plates already and a lot of subjects to plan for, and more that you need to teach than you will ever have time to teach. So we will also work on how you can integrate it into other subject areas, and we will work with your school team on making sure that this is doable for you. Is it possible to see the curriculum prior to the application process? Unfortunately, it is not. The curriculum is being developed from curriculum that is currently out there, but it's not going to be just one curriculum. So we are working with people who are doing similar initiatives all over the country to make sure we have great curriculum and are aware of everything that's available out there for elementary school. This is unique in that it's, computer science has been implemented at the middle school and high school level in New York City more than at the elementary school level up until now. The elementary school movement has been pretty much a grassroots effort. And so we're trying to turn that around so that we can reach more students. And so we are working to create a curriculum that is unique for New York City. And that is the point of the pilot, to test it out and make sure it is highly effective. How many schools will be chosen? How many do you expect to apply? So we plan to accept between 10 and 20 schools into the pilot. There isn't a set number because it depends on the size of the teacher teams. So we have to keep in mind the number of teachers we can support in professional development. So right now we have the number 70 in our heads for the number of teachers that we could support in a professional development session on the mandatory professional development days. So if 10 schools apply with strong teams of 7, then we may, and those are the strongest applications also, there may only be 10 schools in the pilot. However, if there's a mix of different size teams, it could be as many as about 17 schools. We have had a huge outpouring of interest, which is really exciting. So I do expect the application to be competitive. So again, make sure your answers are thorough and thoughtful, and that you show just how interested and excited you are about this. That will help your chances. I have a few teachers who have expressed interest, but many of whom plan on teaching summer school. Have you heard that as a complaint for the mandatory summer sessions from other teachers? We understand there's going to be conflicts. Unfortunately, there are just so many weeks in the summer. The CS for All team also hosts 2 weeks of professional development for middle school and high school teachers. And we wanted to plan the summer professional development before, the end of August rush, when people start going back to school and all of this. So this seemed like the best time. And yes, people will have conflicts. I guess my best advice is that people have to pick and choose their priorities about what they're going to do in the summer. Does the entire team have to be present at each professional development? If you have 6 people on the team, for example, can just 4 of them come, or do they all have to attend every single one? So that's a great question. The teachers who are a part of the pilot program will be expected to be at every mandatory professional development. But this might be something you want to think about when forming your team. Again, I said it before, and I believe it's alluded to in several of the application questions, but the goal of this pilot is for the school to be able to expand computer science to all classes in the school eventually. So the people who are part of the pilot are really the leads for this work, and we hope that they will go back to the school and work with their teams, both their grade teams or potentially other teachers in their grade band, or vertically, however you plan, which is why we asked about that in the application, to ensure that beyond the pilot year, computer science instruction will not only continue, but it will expand throughout the school. Where can this recording be found after you are finished? Great question. It is being recorded and will be hosted by YouTube. I can definitely send out the link to everyone who registered for this webinar so that the people who weren't able to access it can view it, and so you can share it with others if that's helpful. So I will send an email to all of you with the link for the recording and perhaps post it on the website under the webinars tab. Are admins paid for the PD sessions? Great question. This is not something we discussed because we only discussed teachers attending PD, but if admin are interested in attending the PD sessions, my hope is that we'll be able to pay you, but I will have to check with my team and get back to you on that. I can see your name, so I will get back to you personally, but I'm sure others will wonder about that as well. So let me look into that and get back to you. The K2 program at my school is in one building and the 3-5 is in another. What does this mean for equipment provided? Great question. This is the first situation like this I have heard of. Hopefully, if you're selected for the pilot, we can work with you on this particular need. I know that's not a very clear answer, but again, this is my first time hearing this question, so I'll have to look into it and get back to you on that one. This is something we can discuss as we get further along in the application process. Would schools with a larger team earn more points versus a smaller team with a strong vision and application? No, not necessarily. So we are not discriminating against schools versus the size of their team or how much technology they have or if they have a technology teacher. We are looking for schools with a strong vision and a strong application, like you say, who we believe will follow through with the expectations of the pilot, and who will help meet the goals of the CS for All initiative. Hopefully that is helpful. That is all the questions I see. If you have any follow-up questions or you didn't get your question in yet, go ahead and ask it now. I'll stay on for a few more minutes. I know we were scheduled for an hour, but I'm sure a lot of people have other things to do. And again, you can always reach me at escsp@strongschools.nyc if you have any other questions during the application process. I hope this was helpful in answering some of the questions you had coming into the webinar. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Good luck to everybody with testing this week and next week. And I look forward to reading all of your applications. please note that there will be a committee of people reading the applications and scoring the applications. So again, this is why it's important that your answers are as thorough and thoughtful as possible, because several people will be reading each application and scoring each application on the rubric that you received in the overview document. Make sure, just a friendly reminder, to review that overview document thoroughly before submitting your application. And thank you all again. Have a great evening.